HouseBG.com. Just now introducing for the first time Bella Melt with GLP-1 fast action.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of Live Up to Freedom. Thank you so much for joining me today. We are live, as always, on worldviewtube.com, worldviewtube, a Rumble and X account, also on worldviewtube app, which if you haven't installed yet, I strongly suggest you do. It is for free, and you receive notifications whenever there's a live show, especially when there's breaking news or special coverage going on Worldview Tube. Also, we are live on X America News on X, and we're live on all my platforms: Rumble, YouTube, Facebook, Substack, and I think that would be it. I will look at the comment section as always, so if you have any comments, questions, concerns, agreement, disagreement for me or my guests, which we will get to him in a minute, feel free to put them on the comment section and I will read them as we get to them. Before I bring my guest on, I came across a few things today that I figured I should start the show here. Not that in any shape or form this video or any of my videos will ever make its way to President Trump, but I will still do so. Today, I have a message for you, President Trump. And I should say, it's not just my message. It is a message from as far as our grandma, Gohar Eshri. She is the mother of one of the young journalist that was murdered in hands of Islamic Republic of Iran. She has removed her hijab and she is now waving the original flag of Iran, not the Islamic flag, the original flag of Iran. And at this point, she is calling on all Iranians to get behind her to make a change, because if they don't do something today, there will be no Iran left tomorrow. The Islamic regime is done, Trump. There's nothing left of them. Two men in Air Force uniform showed up in public metro, waving the original flag of Iran, not your Islamic flag. Even members of military are joining people. If you would kindly step aside and let Iranian people do their things, we would greatly appreciate it. This regime is done. They were done in June. You saved them. Today, on November 12, 2025, on behalf of Iranian people, I am asking you to step aside, cease all negotiations with the regime, stop throwing them a lifeline, and let Iranians try to free themselves. I don't know if that's a possibility, but I do hope that you can find it in your ego somewhere to look the other way, stop desperately to get your peace prize, and let over 82 million people free themselves. I hope somehow this message makes its way to President Trump. As I said, I'm not holding my breath. And even if it does, I'm not holding my breath that Trump will do it, because 1.2 million Iranians were begging him back in February to sit down with Prince Pahlavi, and he still ignored it to this day. He never even answered his phone call. But I guess it's just good news for us to know that people in Iran are not giving up, and they most certainly don't listen to Trump. Something I feel like people of Israel should start doing. Okay, with that being said, it is time to bring my very special guest, who's a regular here on Live Up to Freedom, Barry Nussbaum, founder of American Truth Project. You can actually find him at findbarry.com. How's it going, Barry?
It's going well, and it's wonderful to see you, and I strongly support your opening introduction. Quick comment on that. I was told when I was last in Israel interviewing one of the top intelligence experts in the Israeli military, he said that there have been several occasions at which the ruling mullah class, all the way up to the Grand Ayatollah, were within days of the regime falling. And if America had just given a little nudge, a little show of support, or even a promise of support, the people in the streets would have stayed in the streets until the regime fled. And cowardly United States foreign policy vis-a-vis Iran back down and let the demonstrators get literally slaughtered in the streets. Thousands and thousands were killed, thousands more were imprisoned, never to be seen again. And so the regime continues, if not for the lack of intervention by the United States, even a very minor one, there might be a free Iran today.
Absolutely, yes. That I was saying this morning, Barry, that the closest we have ever come to see this regime genuinely starting to flee was in June, 12 Days War. We had reports to plane loading family members as close as sons and daughters and son-in-laws and daughter-in-laws of the heads of regime fleeing the country. But look, they're back in power. And if you don't mind, I would like to actually take the rest of this segment to have your take on what is happening. Listen, I get the talks. You get the talks. We've heard the talks. But I reported today that Iran's sale of oil has hit a record highest since 2018, which tells me and you that regardless of sanctions, Iran's regime is still trading. They're selling oil and in return getting, we don't know, weapons, money, other stuff. What? Right? If they're getting cash or weapon, we know it's turning around, getting to Hamas and Hezbollah and Houthis, or in Sudan for that matter. But point is, and that's the thing, lately a lot of people are like, you're picking on Trump too much. I'm like, who am I supposed to pick on? It's his administration. When it was Biden, I was picking on Biden. When it was Obama, I was picking on Obama. But what do you want me to do? But why? I mean, I get the peace prize thing. I don't get it, but I see it. But why would Trump administration and Trump himself, why? What is the benefit? Name one benefit they are receiving from the regime of Iran. Make this make sense to me.
There's none, and you're right. There are extensive amounts of international reports saying that Iranian oil is flooding the world markets through cutouts. Ships that are flagged with other countries, ships that sail without flags, that don't have the international requirements of tracking markers, GPS on the ships. And the oil's going everywhere. When it really comes down to it, these governments are whoring themselves out for Iranian oil that is being sold at prices under the world markets. And what I find extraordinary is Saudi Arabia and the other large exporters are allowing this to happen. If they made a big enough stink about it in the press, and especially directly with Donald Trump, Trump might be motivated to do something. And I don't understand why they're letting the market, they being especially Saudi Arabia, the king of the world oil exporters, is allowing the markets to be flooded by this contraband. It is illegal based on the sanctions for them to be exporting for hard currency. And they're selling to Russia. It's probably going to Eastern Europe, and it's going to China. And obviously, Russia's not going to tell on them, and the Chinese aren't going to tell on them. But it's extraordinary that it's happening, and nobody's doing anything about it. One of the things we talked about when Israel was facing the missile barrage, which we should talk about what's coming next, is whether or not Israel should bomb Karg Island, the slightly offshore enormous facility where oil is pumped out to it and then it is loaded onto tankers. If that facility was taken out with a few bombs, it wouldn't take more than one plane in one bombing run. Iranians' currency on the international markets would stop immediately, would go to zero. And for some reason, that was an off-limit target, which I find extraordinary.
And I'm glad you brought that up, because during, I want to say it was day 7th or 8th of the 12 Days War, And the employees of that facility, they actually announced that they're not going to go to work because they thought that's going to be the next target. They literally, they put it on their boycott or a strike, but they weren't showing up to work after the 7th day of war thinking that's it. This is where Israel is going to hit next.
What I was told, to really be blunt, is you're right, and Israel was told that is off limits by the United States.
There you go.
And I was told that from Israel, from people that know. Bibi had it on the target list. They had the planes ready to go, and Trump had the planes turned around. It's an inside story. I can't give you the source. I was told from somebody that knows.
So was I. That's why I was hoping you're going to say it. That's why I brought it up. Because, Barry, every time I say what happened during the 12 days war, what Trump did, throw a lifeline at the mullahs, everyone's like, you're too attached to this. You shouldn't be discussing. Of course I'm too attached on all fronts. My Iranian blood, my pride in American citizenship, my deep love for Israel, of course I'm too attached. Hello? However, I have not misinformed people. When I say Trump made all the wrong moves, when I say Trump had Bibi's hands handcuffed to a table during those 12 days, I'm not over-exaggerating. Bibi had the right plan.
You're right. And by the way, you mentioned in your introduction about the Houthis being funded by Iran. The Israelis had the same target list for the Houthi ports. They did bomb some of the ports, but they did not disable the oil infrastructure, which would have shut that part of the country down. I mean, Yemen is basically two countries: the part that's ruled by the good guys and the part that the Houthis took over years ago. And if the ports were completely shut down and the oil and energy sector was obliterated, which Israel could have done in 1 or 2 raids, it would have been over. That would have been the end of the Houthis. And either the United States or Israel could have done it, but they didn't. They were told not to. I don't understand this. It's perplexing to me because Israel didn't ask the United States to do the work for them. Israel was prepared to do it, and was
they did it.
As you said, they were told they could not hit certain targets. Meanwhile, just for full disclosure, the Houthis intentionally send missiles into the heart of Israel. They're aiming at apartment buildings. They're aiming at shopping centers. The more terror they can create among the civilian population, just as the Nazis did in 1940 and 41 in London. The Iranian targets the same thing. I've seen the damage done to apartment buildings where Iranian missiles got through the Iron Dome and David Sling and the Arrow missile defense systems and so on. They were aiming at civilian targets, and a couple of the missiles got through and obliterated blocks of apartments. These are huge intercontinental missiles that carry an enormous payload. Israel was prepared to strike back to shut down the oil, and they were prepared to hit Tehran, and they were told no.
And they also were prepared to take out the bunker that was holding Khamenei and his 2 sons, and they also were told no. And that one pretty much is public record, because Trump couldn't help himself but to brag about it next day on Truth Social. What am I supposed to conclude, Barry? Am I supposed to sit here and find excuses for Trump?
I don't understand it. It's so perplexing to me. Trump and then turns around and orders, the most massive, sophisticated bombing raid in world history to hit the nuclear sites. That was okay. But the funding for building the nuclear sites, the enhancement of the uranium, the storage of the uranium, the centrifuges, the bombs they're making, and everybody knows it. Everybody knows it. It's not a secret anymore. Everybody knows it. The money comes from the oil business. The oil business is derived by the shipping facility just offshore at Cork Island. If that was gone, it would be over. Meanwhile, every day now, Iran announces in the next war, we're going to fire, get this is what they're saying, 2,000 missiles at once.
Yes.
Not 50 at a time, 2,000. The multi-layered Israeli defense anti-missile defense system can handle half a dozen coming in at once. At 50 to 100, they're overwhelmed. At 1,000, Israel would be devastated. And they're talking about 2,000. They are, according to Iranian military and religious press, they're on their way to making 2,000 missiles that will be able to hit Israel. And they're going 24/7 on manufacturing.
Hold that thought, because we need to expand on that. We're going to have to take our first ad break, guys. I do see your comments coming in. I appreciate your comments. I'll get to them, I promise. But don't go anywhere. We're going to take a quick ad break. We'll be right back. Well, hello, everybody. It's Anni Cyrus. Welcome to my art studio where all the magic happens. This is the station for painting, and that is the station for all the resin art I do. If you want to check out my art, all you gotta do is go to lutfstudio.com. But I'm sure, or at least I hope, I'll see you at lutfstudio.com.
News is moving faster than ever, and so are we. Worldview Tube brings you 24/7 live stream coverage and now real-time alerts when it matters most. Once you have the Worldview Tube app installed, exit the app and navigate your way to Settings. In Settings, locate the tab labeled Notifications. Select the Notifications tab. Scroll down until you locate the Worldview Tube app icon. Select the tab, and here you can turn on and customize your notification experience for the Worldview Tube app. News doesn't wait, and neither should you. Turn on push notifications to stay informed. Every headline as it happens.
Welcome back to Live Up to Freedom. Thank you so much for staying with us until now. I greatly appreciate it. And yes, if you could head over to my artist studio, lutfstudio.com. That's lutfstudio.com. Use promo code MISSION for special discounts and pick up your Christmas decoration, Christmas gifts, or birthday gifts. I don't know. Some people have birthdays this month and next month. So that would be great. That is one of the two ways you can support what I do, because as you know, I don't actually get paid to do what I do. Everything I do is funded by you and your support. lutfstudio.com, promo code MISSION. Okay, let's bring back Barry. Barry, two things I want to say. One, I want to go back. I agree with what you said as far as Trump ordering the most sophisticated operation and dropping B-2s, but let's face it, it was useless, it was wasted time and endangering people. They achieved nothing. 4 months later, immediately I came out and said they achieved nothing. I put a report on Kalang Mountain and it went unnoticed, but now we have confirmation that 400 kilograms of enriched uranium is safe, sound in Kalang Mountain. They're continuing their operation, and we didn't achieve. What Israel achieved in 12 days is something to brag about, to be proud of, but dropping those B-2s was, to me, it was just a show from Trump to somehow try to distract people from his cooperation and constant helping of Iran's regime. Did we achieve anything? Do we have received any proof that we did any kind of damage that pushed Iran's program a week back? Because right now the agency is literally saying they have enough material to build 10 nuclear bombs. That
Well,
means we
the
didn't make any.
IAEA agrees. The IAEA agrees with you, Annie. The either the material was taken out before,
Hmm.
or they've they've gotten new access into where it was, or it was already distributed out long before into numerous locations. Yeah, those sites were probably somewhere between heavily damaged to completely damaged. Um, the assessment from the United States intelligence matches the Mossad, all of which have gone public saying those sites were destroyed. At least the ability to access the sites was destroyed. Nobody's been inside, as far as we know. But the fact of the matter is, they are bragging on a daily basis that they have enough uranium for a number of nuclear weapons, and they're up and running again, and they will not stop. They announced today, before I came on the air with you, that they will not stop their nuclear program because they want it for peaceful purposes, which is an enormous lie. Everybody in the world knows they're lying. They have 1,000 years of oil. They don't need a nuclear program costing billions of dollars. And they just made a deal with Russia to build them nuclear power plants, which, by the way, can be used to facilitate advancing uranium that can be used for weaponized purposes. Because there's not going to be the traditional, we're coming in, we're going to collect the spent uranium, we're going to make sure it doesn't get super enhanced up to bomb explosive quality and so on. Russia doesn't care because nobody attacks Russia. Nobody, because Russia's attacks aren't like everybody else. And everybody knows it. You know, if I used to always say after October 7th and the massacre in southern Israel by the barbarians from Hamas and their supporters, that if an attack like that had happened on Russia, there wouldn't be a man, woman, child, donkey, or dog alive in Gaza within 24 hours. They would have obliterated everybody, and they wouldn't have cared what anybody said. So when Russia makes a deal that allows or even facilitates a nuclear program out of Iran, they're not worried about being attacked. They're not worried about being a target because everybody knows that the second strike, which would be their strike in response, would send Tehran and the surrounding areas into the Stone Age.
Yes, but again, I go back to we didn't achieve anything.
Well,
Bombing.
no. You're right. No.
But I mean, we lost a lot of money because, from what I understand, that all of that operation, including the B-2s, are pretty expensive. But it comes down back to, I'm going to ask you the question very, I don't mean to put you in a spot, but I'm just going to ask. Is Trump administration genuinely an ally of Israel, or is Trump administration using the term of alliance to feed into what's needed for them to continue empowering their Arab nations? And you can say pass.
That was my first response. You know, I was thinking that, but that doesn't help your viewers. On the one hand, I do have to give Trump credit. He has been the most American supportive president in the history of the state of Israel since President Truman led the acknowledgement and support for the new state in 1948 after Israel was declared an independent country. But since that time, there's no question the best friend Israel's ever had is Trump. However, some of the stuff he does is so perplexing to me. I don't know if it's in his mind. I wouldn't know unless I sat and talked with him. Is he still running for the Nobel Peace Prize for next year? He says he is. He says he is. He mentions it periodically. I should have gotten it last time. I will get it next time. But then again, you know, he does things like tells Israel that there's 200 fully armed terrorists stuck in a tunnel on the Israeli side of the line in Gaza, and Israel has to let them go. Not surrender and have them deported, which finally Marco Rubio and Jared Kushner put tremendous pressure on Bibi to say yes to. And ironically, there's no country in the world that will take them. So now what does Israel do? Do they go in there and fight them and kill them, which is what Israel wants to do? So Trump does things like that, which are just weird. I mean, I was on your show not 2 weeks ago, a month ago or 6 weeks ago, and we were talking about the new peace deal, 20 steps. First it was 21, then it got cut down to 20. We're still on step one. One. The whole thing has failed. And yet, Trump is talking about how great the peace deal is. He's allowing France to put together a constitution for the Palestinian state, wherever that is, whatever it is. I don't even know. But France is doing that, in spite of the fact that polls in France say that Macron has no support from the public for that, except for from the Muslims that are in and around Paris. And Trump doesn't say a thing. I don't understand it. I just don't know what he's thinking. It's bizarre. And I don't know what his agenda is. I don't. Because what should be is Israel ought to be able to say to Trump, you know what? We signed on to your deal under tremendous pressure. 57 or 59 countries signed up. It was contingent on one thing, Hamas doing 20 things. They haven't done step one yet. And they were supposed to do that weeks and weeks and weeks and weeks ago. So all bets are off. We'll go wipe them out. Okay? And Trump should say yes, because he said in the beginning, and we talked about this, if Hamas does not cooperate, they will be annihilated. We will have them wiped out. They will be destroyed. I can give you 30 of these quotes. He'd said it every day. He doesn't say that anymore, does he?
No, because we ran out of 48 hours timestamp. Like in 48 hours, if you don't do it in 48 hours, 48 hours later, he realized, well, I think people are catching up with my tough talk, no action. I better stop doing the tough talk. Now, I should have differentiated my question. What you're referring to, which I agree with, is Trump 45th. Trump 47th is very different. I can't. I've been looking from day one. I've been monitoring. I've been writing nonstop. Literally, the first article to come out after we dropped the B2s were me. Brown House genuinely asked me, like, how did you write this so fast? I'm like, oh, I didn't write it so fast. I had it ready. That's how sure I was this show's going to happen. And that's how sure I was it's not going to make a dent. I don't recall Trump 47th doing anything that would show me his a strong support for Israel yet in last 11 months. 45th, absolutely. From day one until last day, he has stood by Israel strong. This time around,
I'll tell you what's not generally publicized, and for this I give him a lot of credit. Joe Biden strangled the military supplies of Israel that had already been bought and paid for and contracted and were sitting in warehouses at military production facilities in the United States. And he did it with the full support of his vice president / idiot, Kamala Harris, who made dumb statements after dumb statements trying to be the vice president out front and became increasingly nonsensical the closer it got to her election campaign. The fact of the matter is, when Trump became president, Israel got all of the weapons released that had been paid for and
you're
had
talking
been
about this 2025, this term.
Yes. And so that replenished the stockpiles that Israel was desperate for. Having said that, in many ways, there are so many perplexing things that I can't explain to you. I read your brilliant article this morning that you wrote about Syria, and I advise all of your Live Up to Freedom people, you must read what Anni wrote about Syria. Syria is led by an Al-Qaeda terrorist who changed his name and got out of his terror garb and put on a very nice Armani suit that Trump mentions all the time, and Trump received him like an equal head of state. I have a picture that I put out probably a month ago with the president of Syria holding the severed head of one of his enemies in his hand. There was a $10 million bounty on his head. He's an Al-Qaeda terrorist. And he was received at the White House as if he was an elected, democratically supported head of state. He's a stone cold killer.
Hold that thought, because we need to talk way more about what happened on Monday, and I appreciate the compliments. I second that. Head over to my Substack, liveuptofreedom.substack.com, and the title of the Substack, I believe, is The Syrian Hudna Trump Just Signed. Read it. We're going to take our next ad break. When we come back, we're going to actually dive into the Syrian Hudna. Don't go anywhere.
Do you appreciate all the free programming we produce here at Worldview Tube? Well, if you do, we need your partnership now. If you're already supporting us, thank you. If you're not, would you please consider doing so? We have to have a big November and December end of the year giving. Please go here right now to this website, worldviewfoundation.com, worldviewfoundation.com. You can give through credit card. You can give through PayPal. You'll find our mailing address there if you prefer to support us through the mail. You'll also find our phone number. Simply use that phone number by leaving a voicemail for Melissa or texting her, and my wife will get back with you and help you make your contribution over the phone. We send out tax receipts with our EIN number, well, the first week of February of each year. We, again, have to have a very big November and December as we get ready for pushing out more Christian worldview programming for 2026. So thank you for going now to worldviewfoundation.com. That's worldviewfoundation.com.
Welcome back to Live Up to Freedom. Thank you so much for staying with us until now. We're halfway through our show. I will not say anything. Let's dive right back into the Syrian Hudna with Barry Nussbaum, founder of American Truth Project. You can find him and his project at findbarry.com. I'm so glad you said that, Barry. I know that suit, the $3,000 suit that made him a good-looking guy, seemed to have also washed away all of his sins and crimes. The event itself was, of course, shocking, but then hearing Al-Sharaa, also known as Jelani to most Americans, sit in front of the interviewer at Fox News and be full-on entitled and saying, I did not sign an agreement, I am not going to deal with Israel, I am not, literally spitting all over us right after he walked out of White House. That was the finish line for me. That was when I did not get much sleep. I was like, we can, under Trump, really? A convicted, wanted, and hunted jihadist is received at the White House. Sanctions removed. Frozen assets unfrozen. Legitimacy, credibility, all debts paid. And then he sits there and is like, maybe Trump can do it. Maybe Trump can do it. Have you seen that interview yet? I have a feeling you have.
You know, in the law, they teach you the comment in Latin, quid pro quo, you know, something for something. And I don't understand what we got. I mean, quite frankly, I honestly have no idea what Trump got, because everything Trump said, Jelani has invalidated. You know, it was Syria's going to join the Abraham Accords. Nope. Syria's going to make peace with Israel. Nope. Syria is going to acknowledge Israeli sovereignty over the Golan Heights. Nope. Jelani's going to take responsibility for all the people he slaughtered. Nope. Jelani's going to promise to not kill the Druze, the Christians, the Alawites that are being massacred by his affiliate commandos that are going in and just literally wiping out men, women, and children, especially Christians. Nope. And when you see the way he's kind of dancing around, he's a really smart guy. He is really well trained on how not to commit to anything. And I think your use of the word hudna is perfect. It's the same thing Hamas did by agreeing to what Trump slammed down their throats in Gaza. You're getting wiped out. Get the other side to stop wiping you out. Sign anything, knowing that in your religion, you're obligated to stand down, get them to stop killing you, and during the peace, and I put that in quotes, it's just a cessation of violence, you rearm, you recruit, you come up with new battle plans, and when you're strong enough, you do what Muhammad did. You go conquer the main city in Arabia, which is what he did. He signed a permanent peace treaty, and just a few years later rode in and slaughtered everyone in Mecca.
Oh, no, the peace treaty was for 10 years because you're not allowed to exceed 10 years. It was for 10 years, but in 2 years he achieved the military he needed to go and wipe them off.
And
that's Muhammad.
That's a hudna. And the Syrians are doing the same thing. Change your name, stop cutting off heads on camera, get a really nice suit, right? Take over the palace, promise anything anybody in the West wants to hear. And like you said, Trump released all the frozen money, threw out the sanctions, welcomes him as an equal among the leaders in the world. Meanwhile, Israel's trying to figure out what the heck just happened. They were promised Syria in the Abraham Accords, peace on the Golan Heights, no more worry about the Druze being slaughtered, because there's Druze on both sides of the Syrian border, the Lebanese border, and the Israeli border. And the Druze are incredibly loyal people to the state of Israel. They fight in the army. They are proudly waving Israeli flags, but they want their relatives on the other side to be free. And that was part of what Trump was supposed to get done. For the life of me, maybe you're smarter on this subject than I am. What did Trump get for us in exchange for Al-Jilani getting everything? Tell me what we got.
Well, directly, nothing. But here's my very, very educated analysis of the situation. As you know better than I do, Jilani from day one has been under protection of Saudi Arabia. This whole shake hands for first time back in May of Trump and Jilani happened in Saudi Arabia. Saudi Arabia stepped in and requested approval from Trump to pay off all Syrian debt, which Trump approved and Saudi Arabia did. Unfortunately, from ages ago to today, every single administration has allowed Saudi power to root deeper into our government and into our country. I strongly believe, aside the fact that desperately Trump wants more signatures on that occurred so he can get his peace deal, also when it comes to the protected guy by Saudi, what do? We go up against Saudi Arabia? We can't do that. We don't have any oil deal with Iran. We have to listen to what Saudi wants. So what we got technically was to keep Saudi Arabia happy with us. And these are the dangers when you go and start making deals with Islamic countries, modern or not. One day it comes back to bite you. And Monday was the day it bit us pretty hard. But again, that's just my estimate. I might be wrong.
Well, just the same way I talked about Syria joining the Abrahamic Accords, Trump said Saudi Arabia was coming in. That is so embarrassing for Trump, where, you know, the de facto leader of the country comes out and says, nope, maybe in the future, no. Mm-hmm. I'm talking about MBS, obviously. And, yeah. and the reality is, Trump says these things, and then the press obviously goes to the other side. Well, tell us about the deal you made with Trump to come into the Abraham Accords and recognize Israel and open an embassy and have peace. We're not doing that. But that's the thing. Nobody says anything about it. It's completely the opposite of what we were told had just happened.
But listen, this is what happens, and I know it, you know it, Israeli government knows it very well, most Jewish people know it, but here's what most Westerners don't know. When you don't stand up to Islamic, Taqiyya, Hutna, Ketman, any of them, they will leverage that against you because they see how desperate you are for the negotiation. It could be Biden, it could be Kamala, it could be George Bush, Clinton, Trump. It's not even about the master of all deals or whatever. It's the mentality and the culture difference. They said no the first time. There was no backlash. There was no punishment. There was no consequence. The question followed by, what else can I do for you to sign this? That's when they're like, oh, I see. Okay, now you're going to do this for my buddy over here, Jelani, and then you're going to do that for my buddy over there in Egypt. Oh, by the way, while you're at it, I want you to push back my enemy a little bit. We think we're winning all the negotiations. I stated this on my show this morning on an interview, that if you would look, and I will gladly do that, I will put together a Substack. Unfortunately, the Middle East situation has gotten worse since January of 2025 versus last year, January 2024. We have not managed anything. You know, Barry. They might think there is ceasefire between Gaza and Israel, and what? As you said 6 weeks ago, but Hamas was 2 weeks away from being done. It would have been much better if we did stay out of it. The same thing with the Iran situation. But the entire Middle East has learned Trump's language, and they're playing his own game better than him.
Well, you've left out what may be the biggest elephant in the room, and that's Egypt. The entire Sinai.
I brought Egypt in.
The Sinai Peninsula is supposed to be a demilitarized zone going all the way back to the peace treaty signed by Sadat. Egypt has occupied the Sinai with a massive movement of military equipment and supplies into the desert, just across the border from Gaza and Israel. And nobody says anything except Israel. And Egypt hosted the peace conference where Trump flew from Israel to Sharm el-Sheikh to sign the deal, right? That supposedly, this was weeks and weeks and weeks and weeks ago, when he was going to get the Peace Prize for sure. And since then, virtually nothing has changed except, and I got to give Trump credit for this, there was tremendous pressure put on Hamas in the very beginning to release the hostages. All the live hostages are out. And there's still a few dead hostages being held. When the pressure comes back, they'll all be miraculously found. But in the meantime, you make a very interesting point. If Trump had just gotten out of the way, Israel would have finished Hamas, and it would have been done. And then, whatever the future is going to be with some sort of international force, it could have been put together, and Hamas would have been in the history books, and Gaza would have been on its way to being independent, again, rebuilt, and for people that want to stay, billions was going to come in from the rich oil states, not to mention the United States, and there would have been a government that would have been okay. Now, I'm just astounded about this. The Palestinian Authority is saying they're going to run Gaza. These are the same people under the most corrupt administration maybe in Middle Eastern history. Everybody connected to the Palestinian Authority has become worth hundreds of millions or billions at the very top. Yasser Arafat's daughter is the richest woman in Europe for the money that her father stole and was secreted away in Switzerland, and everybody knows about it. So Israel's freaking out. We don't want the Palestinian Authority in Gaza. We don't even want them in Judea and Samaria. It's a criminal enterprise of major proportion that still is running today the pay-for-slay program. And everybody that Israel released, thousands of terrorists, I think 1,900 murderers were let out of Israeli jails, many of whom participated in October 6th, in exchange for 20 living hostages. That's insane. And then the Palestinian Authority paid out millions to them. Millions. Because they survived after killing Jews. And that's who Trump seems to be suggesting is going to be in charge of the new government in Gaza. If you were Israel, would you be freaking out? I would be.
Well, I wouldn't be freaking out. I would just stop listening to any American president for that matter, not to keep poking at Trump. I would have stopped listening. I completely agree with everything you said, but let's make life a little easier. We can go back to June again, end of June, and we would have just let Israel finish the regime in Iran. Everybody with a little bit of brain knows if the mullahs are done, with that goes Houthis, Hezbollah, Hamas, IRGC. So we could have made it a lot easier instead of earning a ceasefire and throwing life line for the mullahs. By June, we could have finished, cut the head of the snake, and then watch the rest of these little alphabet soups disappear on their own. But we won't disappear, guys. We do need to take our last ad break, however. Don't go anywhere. When we come back, we conclude on this discussion, and I know at least there are 2 questions for Barry on the comment section. I'll make sure to read them to Barry so he can answer them. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back.
You woke up with a sore throat and a low-grade fever. You know you are getting sick, so here's your choices. You can get sicker and miss work. Try to see a doctor this week, or sit hours in a crowded waiting room at urgent care.
I have a smarter option for you. Open your medical emergency kit. Match your symptoms to doctor-recommended prescription in your booklet and take the right meds now and get well faster.
This is not a first aid kit. It's like having an urgent care in your home. It includes doctor-prescribed medications to treat over 39 medical issues like respiratory infections, strep throat, pneumonia, UTIs, and more.
No waiting to see the doctor and no standing in line at the pharmacy. It's right here.
Every home should have at least one medical emergency kit, and here's how to order.
Go to worldviewhealthcare.com. Your kit to treat dozens of common and serious illnesses is rushed to your door. worldviewhealthcare.com. That's worldviewhealthcare.com.
The emergency kit available at worldviewhealthcare.com. Make sure you don't have to go to urgent care. I got pneumonia. I didn't have to go. I took this last year. Stayed at home. Went to bed.
Welcome back to Live Up to Freedom. Thank you so much for staying with us until now. Let me apologize to our audience on Facebook. Seems like Facebook kicked the feed, but I did reset it, so we should be back on a separate feed, but it is Facebook. What do you want me to do? But I did reset the feed over there. Let's conclude on that before we go to some of the comments from our audience, Barry. I'm just going to say that here's what I think. Peace prize is the top priority for Trump, and I'm not ashamed to say that it is what it is. At this point, he will throw anybody under the bus. If that means by end of January 2026, his name is going to be dropped into the list. Secondly, I do believe, knowingly or not, I don't know that part. I really don't, because I'm not that deep into his head or heart. But I do believe if Trump doesn't change course when it comes to outside or inside, dealing with Islamists, I'm not saying Muslims, I'm saying Islamists like Jelani, like Mamdani, like Khamenei, the rest of them. If he doesn't change course, he might very well be the president that stepped further than Obama on Islamization of America. Your thoughts?
Ugh.
You're not loving me today, are you?
Yeah, I was thinking the same thing. You know, I look at Minnesota, I look at Texas, and of course, the monster news out of New York, and I don't recognize my country. We are sliding into oblivion. And I'm looking at some of these candidates that are declaring now to run against Democrats that aren't considered progressive enough, and they all have Arabic names, and they campaign in Arabic, and they make no secret of where their alliances lie. It is stunningly shocking. The candidate to unseat the mayor of Minneapolis, a Somali immigrant who campaigned in Arabic, came within a whisker of becoming the next mayor of Minneapolis. And then the guy that won re-election gave his acceptance speech, not in English, to appease his supporters so that he can show that nobody's going to out-Muslim him, even though he is, for all intents and purposes, an apostate Jew who makes no secret of the fact that he hates Israel. I mean, that's what's happening here. And you mentioned the 45 Trump. the big difference I see between the 45 Trump and the 47 Trump, with obviously Biden in the middle at President 46, is Trump used to recognize the threat of Islam in America. And I sort of felt several years ago that he had studied at the foot of Thomas Jefferson, who probably, according to most historians, the most brilliant president we ever had, who kept a Quran on his desk. And he kept it not because he believed in it, it's because he was afraid of it. And he would say, whenever he was asked, that the Mohammedans, as he called them, the Muslims, cannot be Americans unless they give up this book. And the book he would show them was the Quran, because they would not become Americans. They would not believe in our Constitution. They would not believe in the freedoms of the Bill of Rights. They would not believe in equality of men and women. They would not believe in democracy, and on and on and on. And Jefferson knew that. We, as Americans, in 2025, have forgotten that as a culture and politically. And so, you know, there's some movement, for example, among conservatives in the Congress, to ban Sharia in the United States. Not ban the Islamic religion, but ban Sharia, the sort of the parallel society that is being established in community after community around America. And I mentioned Texas earlier. They're talking about building this entire city, housing and jobs and recreation and mosques run on Sharia principles. That's terrifying, literally terrifying. There are now Islamic courts, for example, in Great Britain that are completely outside the justice system in the British courts that actually were the basis of our court system and the way we treat defendants and we prosecute civil and criminal cases. And you, I know your story, and maybe your audience doesn't, you know what a Sharia court will do, especially if you're a female. It's horrific. And the idea that that will be here in our country is literally a freeway speed into the toilet. If people don't think that's true, do what I used to say when I used to give speeches in California all the time: spend $6 or $7, buy a Quran with a good translation, and read it. And be prepared to be stunned. You have no idea what's in there, and you need to know.
And here's my suggestion always: if you don't have the time or the willpower, or you don't want to read the all satanic book all at once, just read chapter 569, right? Read those 3 chapters, and they abrogate everything else before that. So those 3 are of the latest chapters. Read those. Now, if you care to know what a woman stands in Islam, then sure, read chapter 4 as well. 4, 5, 6, 9, or 5, 6, 9. That's all. You get the gist of it. You see the picture. You see exactly what it deals with. But we only have 5 minutes, less than 5 minutes. Becky McDonald, 1, calm down. I've always said I'll pay attention to your comments as long as you keep them clean. So keep it clean. However, Becky is unhappy with me comparing Jelani and Mamdani in the same sentence. You want to take this one of how we are able to compare Mamdani and Jelani, Barry?
Well, they come from different backgrounds. Jelani is a terrorist, an Al-Qaeda terrorist. I don't want anyone to whitewash that. He was responsible for the slaughter of a zillion people and killed a bunch himself. That's his background. And he wants to create an Islamic society in Syria, a Sunni Islamic society. Mamdani comes from a very privileged background where he was raised by parents.
Hold on, let me interrupt you, especially because we're coming to an end. How I phrased it was, if Trump doesn't change course toward these Islamists, and then I said like Jelani, like Mamdani, like Khamenei. Becky McDonald seemed to think calling Mamdani an Islamist like Jelani was wrong of me. That's good.
Oh, my God, is she wrong? Mamdani says in his own tweets, I'm a 12er. Look it up. I want your viewer to understand what that means. It is a radical Islamist sect that will destroy the world if necessary to bring the 12th Imam to the earth. That's what they believe.
The Iranians. 12ers are the Iranians. Majority, they want to, let's put it this way, make it easy. There's only one majority Shia 12er country in the world, and that is Iran. The one country that runs the region, funds all jihad. Now you tell me what a 12er is. Just one regime in one country is a 12er, and they run the rest of them. So again, I don't want to take too much of time, especially because she also thinks foreign languages really scare you guys. Becky, you want me to say something in 7 different languages and you just stare at the camera trying to figure out which language was what? Honey, I speak 6 languages. Foreign languages doesn't scare us. It doesn't scare us. It's a matter of principle. It's a matter, when I came to America, my first priority was to learn the language, no matter how much of an accent I'm going to have. It doesn't matter how broken my grammar is going to be. I'm going to show respect to my new home by learning the language. That is the factor. When you walk around in Minnesota and all you hear is Somalians speaking their mother tongue, that is disrespect. I could sit here and do my show in Farsi, in Turkish, God forbid in Arabic. But I chose to do it in English. Why? Because I represent America. So it's not about fearing foreign languages. Clearly, I don't know where your head is at, but I would suggest putting it back on your neck. I'm sorry. People are stupid. But that's all right. Barry, we have 1 minute. Literally 1 minute, 60 seconds. Leave my audience with words of wisdom like you do every other week, as we kind of gave him a lot of bad news today.
I'm a firm believer as a political scientist for a long, long time, educated at one of the maybe top schools in the country for political science. I've learned that the pendulum swings usually too far in both directions. The election of Mamdani in New York, he's a radical Islamist 12er. Please, audience of Annie, look up what that means. Will cause so much discord, will cause economic chaos, will cause social breakdowns within the city, that the pendulum will then swing back. And the people that stay in New York will say, enough of this. This is insane. We got sold a bill of goods that we should never have listened to. The free train never works. It's never worked in a country on earth, and it won't work in the largest city in America either. I have optimism that the pendulum will swing back. But since it's way over here and it's coming this way, it's going to be a while before it gets all the way over to the other side. And it gets there faster if people get educated. Find out what Mamdani says. Read his tweets. Read about him.
Let me jump
Don't
in.
Don't fall into the BS. Get educated.
Yes. Here, get educated. One of the best ways you can stay educated and informed, especially about Mamdani, find Barry.com, because Barry's covering Mamdani's moves. Barry is putting Mamdani under the microscope. Find Barry.com. Barry, as always, look forward to having you back in 2 weeks to update my audience. To my lovely audience, thank you so much for staying with me until now. liveuptofreedom.substack.com, liveuptofreedom.substack.com, also lutfstudio.com. Use promo code MISSION for a special discount. Pick up your Christmas gifts and everything else you might need. Until Monday, I want you to stay safe, stay vigilant. May God bless you, and may God bless America. Goodbye.